Welcome to the Last Poll Podcast, episode 11. I once again messed up the intro. This was a double intro mess up, though, today. Anyway, we're here with Ace, professional streamer, by the way. I was muted. Okay, we've got it, though. Take 2, take 3, we're back at it. Yeah. It's been like 2.5 years since we last spoke, so I'm excited to talk to you. Like, what's been going on in your life in the last 2.5 years?
It feels like everything and nothing at the same time. It's I still remains at home, sick leave, chronic illness, the usual, but at the same time started streaming. That's been growing steadily, getting a community going, became a dad. As we mentioned off stream, that I'm part of the dad daughter
The
alliance
girl
now.
dad club. Yeah. It's a big club. I don't know if you know this, but there's like a lot of girl dads out there in the Guild Wars 2 community, at least. There's like my moderator team. There's a bunch of us. So
we should make a Facebook group or something.
Yeah, there you go. That's the way. Yeah. So you said your daughter is like 1 or 2. I forget. What did you
say? She's reaching 2 in a couple months. So it's going
busy
fast.
Time of life. Very busy time of life.
Very much. But
actually, no. This is kind of interesting. Wait, my daughter is turning 2 in September. So. Is your daughter's birthday in around September too?
I have to think now, so wife doesn't kill me. We're talking August, so it's almost.
Okay, yeah, our daughters are very similar in age. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well,
but So
that's taking a lot of time. You started this whole community now, and I remember last time you were just kind of getting into streaming and figuring things out, and here we are, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What have you learned in the last 2.5 years?
Oh, where do I start? Well, other than the fact that when you start streaming, they very much underestimated how much work it takes off stream. It wasn't just to kind of click stream and get going, and that there's a bunch of fantastic people out there, and a lot of people that sometimes need a little extra push, right? And then with that little help, they turn into full-fledged raiders, dungeoneers, strikers, all of it. And it's a Gavi saw someone in the chat. But it really feels like there's a void in that sort of thing. So the moment you begin to branch out, saying like, here we are, we're open, we're available, we're helping out, people are just jumping in and they want it. So that's probably the number one that there's the commanders, I guess, overall. I know you mentioned that a little bit in the previous video you talked your podcast episode. You talked a little bit about that, the commanding and the trainers lacking.
Yeah. It is my opinion that there's too much pressure on commanders. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of pressure.
If anything, socially, right? Just that people want to jump into squads so they don't have to deal with the social part. But that social part just kind of gets transferred to the commander instead. So it doesn't just disappear. Someone has to pick up that and deal with it. And it's a lot, but it's also very, very fun. I can make a lot of metaphors to being a teacher, and I mean this might be rude to some people, but I can make a lot of comparisons to being a teacher in like middle school maybe. So it's a similar sort of a situation. As a commander, you're kind of the teacher, and you have to work around all these different people with different mindset, with different goals, with different takes, expectations, and there you are. You're just supposed to do magic with your niece and work with it. It's a challenge. It really is. And the weird thing is that probably the more difficult the content is, probably the easier the commanding is, because that kind of the difficulty is more about the actual encounter. You just kind of have to be there, fix the subgroups, and then you work it out as a group. But if you do Dragon's End, it's a lot more pressure on you, and then it's a lot more than just subgroups. It's the social aspect, and people jump in with their people are very scared of commanding, but a lot of people are very comfortable making opinions about your commanding. So
Yeah, they are.
yeah,
You know,
so
I have a line I like to use when people start judging how I'm commanding or trying to get me to change stuff. I just say, tag up or shut up. Because I am
honestly,
not interested in
yeah,
the critique because
yeah,
you're not the tag.
yeah, and the vast majority probably has at this point as well. Like
Oh yeah.
it's not,
Oh
yeah,
oh yeah. Get this. I
yeah,
I went to Triple Trouble and I multi-boxed to try to get, a group going.
mm-hmm.
And I realized, multi-boxing that is quite difficult. And so
Yeah,
I was trying to command 2 lanes at once. And so I just said,
mm-hmm.
"Hey, will anyone please just tag up for this?"
Mm-hmm.
No one responded. I was like, and people often complain. They say, "Oh, well, people just don't have the commander tag." So I went and right
Yeah,
clicked on every player in my squad, and there's like 40
mm-hmm.
people, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Right clicked on every single one to see who had a commander tag because you can appoint them as squad leader. And it was
Yeah,
over 50%.
yeah,
More than half had the
mm-hmm.
commander tag, but not a single person was willing to take the responsibility.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
painful.
Yeah, it is really difficult to motivate people to dare. But everybody knows it's the same thing with PvP, right? That it's very easy to you just click on these 2 buttons, join a game, and there you are, and you can get a build, copy paste, la la la. But the biggest challenge is that putting yourself on the line, that you're scared of the the so-called feedback, so-called criticism. Sometimes it's it's a little bit more personal than just some little criticism, but it's the whole social aspect of it that's the most intimidating part, and that's what we noticed in when we began hosting raid trainings, things like that as well. That it like I was at the time when I started streaming and began doing raid trainings, I was by far the probably the least um, knowledgeable raider out there. I just began raiding and just kept a good vibe, kept a good tone, and people realized that we're not pointing fingers to Adam or like, oh, your quickness uptime is only 85%. That's below par. Get kicked, get good. We did nothing. We did and still do nothing of those sorts, and it's working very comfortably. And people sign up. We have never issues with filling a squad or anything like that. So it's definitely that. So in raids, you have more control as a commander because then you can kind of set the tone. But when you do open world bosses, you don't really choose who
Yeah, I
you
think
play
there's
with
there's
in that
actually
sense.
there's something a little bit hidden in what you're saying. Not that you're hiding anything, but I think there's some nuance here. When you're in open
Mm.
world, you can't set the tone as effectively.
Yeah.
And moreover, if you have 10 people, you can supervise those 10 people a lot easier. But when
Hmm.
you're in open world, there's actually typically
Yeah.
more than 50 people anyway. And this creates some interesting problems because that means you can't supervise everybody. You can't
Mhm.
gatekeep people, right?
Yeah.
And as much as people like
Yeah.
to go, oh, gatekeeping is bad, gatekeeping is
Mm.
actually good because gatekeeping prevents like absolutely unhinged people from being in your group too. So a
Yeah.
good example of this is if you have people that are saying like horrible things, I mean, you can all block them, I guess, but you're still
Mm.
playing with them. You're still like allowing them to exist next to you in open world. In
Yeah.
raids, if somebody is like picking on your friend, you kick them and they never get into your group ever again.
Yeah.
Like I had this person, you can tell me if I'm a jerk for this, by the way, but
Hear me. I'll be honest.
yeah.
Am
So
I
I
the
went
asshole?
into
Sneds
the
tradition. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. I went into the LFG and I said, hey, I'm going to do an all elementalist run for Wing
Alright.
1. So we did all
Yeah.
elementalists. So I went to the LFG and it said all elementalist only, Wing 1. Somebody
Mm.
messaged me and they said, is it okay if I bring a necromancer? And I was like,
Yeah.
this is the
Yeah.
only condition of joining the group. I don't care if your elementalist is level 1 or whatever. Like, this is the only
Mm.
condition. So I was a bit snide. I messaged them back and I just said, well, is your necromancer an elementalist? and
Yeah.
and they like flamed me out, right, and got like really upset that I was being sarcastic, and I was like, LOL, it's just like a meme run. Like it's just like,
Yeah,
it's
nothing
not a big
serious.
deal. But people on NA get a little bit testy about these things because that person will never find a group now because they have just angered. This just sounds so bad, but like if you piss off like 3 communities on NA, you will never raid again. Like you're just totally done. Like if that person doesn't play, like if they don't play with Scan Gang, they're losing like potentially hundreds of people to raid with. And the raid community is super small. And then if you piss off the people at RA, Raid Academy, then you just lost like a huge amount of people to play with, like tens of thousands probably. Anyway, this like goes on, right? So they just pissed off one person that could have helped them, and that's unfortunate. But it's like an attitude issue. That person, I don't want to play with that person. I don't want to play with them because they were mean.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. The issue was not that you asked to bring out a necromancer. The reason was the response, like the reaction, and a lot of people don't really.
Mad.
Well, you have to be mad. But yeah, it's some. I've had multiple members join in our community, and then sometimes you just feel like this one might be a problem in the future, and some more other than
I just
not,
imagine you like sitting
true.
back, and you're just like, this person may be problematic. Anything could happen
really
at any
nice
moment.
DM conversations later with this one.
Yeah,
but
I may have to take this person outside and tell them that they are the problem.
yeah, but honestly, like sometimes that happens. I've had multiple people get mad at me for telling them to maybe don't say these things, don't do these things. You're being rude, and then they will go. I thought it was a welcoming community. It's like, but we are not the one being not welcome. And then you begin to get like it gets philosophical. It gets extreme. It gets really extreme.
People get super weird about raids. Like it's like it's this extension of who they are, and they're like, oh, if I'm not good at raids, then I'm nothing, and you're telling me that I'm not good enough, and like. Yeah, it's just this existential crisis, and it doesn't need to be that way. It's just a game.
No.
But yeah, it's so. I want to go back quick. I want to go back quick to one thing. In open world, you cannot stop these people. You are forced to play with people that are just unhinged, don't vibe with your community culture, or they're going to AFK forever and just leech off of you. 100 DPS soul beast, by the way.
It's a very rough spot to be in, because I can see where every unit is going with it. Like open world is fantastic in Guild Wars 2, and I think it's a great mix to kind of make it a little more challenging. But I think it's challenging in weird ways, because the more challenging open world content gets, the more pressure and expectations is put on the commander. And somehow the commander is the embodiment of how the map performs.
Yeah.
So people don't want to command up, and that means you have everybody's a higher risk of failing, because nobody dares to tag up, because you don't get the subgroups, you don't get this, you don't split evenly. There's a lot of mechanics in open world where you need to go to multiple platforms. The final boss in the Neos, that's the same thing, right? You go to 2 sides, and you need some sort of. To be fair, most people kind of ignores when you command and you tell them where to go, but there's
But I mean, that's kind of what I mean, right? Like that, they will listen to you in the convergence. Trust me, in convergence CMs, when I'm doing this with my community, I do like little tests. I'm like, all right, everybody go stand on that rock. All right, now everybody go stand there. And I watch like 49 people moving together, right? And I go, all right, now let's just do this, but better.
Yeah.
But they'll like listen because the content is hard, right? The content necessitates that you actually work together and that you invest your focus. But open world, you don't have to. It's kind of focus is optional because 20 people will carry you through the rest of this stuff.
Pretty much.
I actually view that as the most problematic part of Guild Wars 2, is that much of the game does not necessitate you working together, does not necessitate that you care about anything. You don't have to care about your build, your gear. There's no personal investment in the success of the thing. Subjectively, there actually is, right? Like if everybody goofs off and doesn't do anything, then things will fail. I have seen Drakkar fail because everyone is standing AFK in the middle, and Javi's like force field of godliness gets broken, and everyone's like, "What happened?" And you're like, "We were all AFK. You did nothing," right? Like,
yeah. That was actually an issue that we had in our community, that we have a very devoted member who were doing Ogre Wars for that one Sam.
Oh, Sam! Who are they? I must find them. I need to get Sam.
Actually got it, by the way, and it was a big thing. I was like, "There's no way you're getting this. You will make me play Blades on an entire stream if you get that drop." And literally a week later, you got it. So I don't like Blades.
Ogre Wars.
But during that time, I was asked multiple occasions to command, because there was a lot of commanders who tagged up trying to, I'm a taxi for Ogre Wars, 2 people joins, but then the commander stood AFK. Scaled up the pre-event bugs out and fails, and then it gets toxic on the map chat, and then just kind of leaves. So there's something there. There's a niche of players that want low effort, high rewards, and commanders are not necessarily innocent in that one either. In many cases,
not at all. but isn't it just weird? Like I know that I am probably just some psychopath on the internet, but like the thing that I struggle with in understanding is like you're not even playing the game anymore, right? Like you're literally not playing the game. You are just standing there and getting pixels. I don't get it. Like what's the purpose of this? Like you're not playing. The point of the game is to play the game.
That's what I would say.
It's scary.
Yeah. That's what I would say is the biggest obstacle issue in Guild Wars 2, is that there's a lot of content, but it gets boosted through because it's either so easy, simple, or there's a very well performing range magic DPS wielder with a very low effort, super high DPS with cleaves and single target damage that just boosts through and everything before it manages to get reasonably balanced, and then it's done. People don't. Somehow people are very satisfied with that because people want a fight, whether it's open world, it's raids, strikes. They want a fight that they can jump in, get super big rewards for little effort within their comfort zone. Nobody wants to go outside, try something new, learn something new, touch on grass, and then get something good, right? I remember in the beginning of EOD, people got upset that they need to go into one strike mission for the turtle.
Yeah.
I personally don't get that. I come from early stages of World of Warcraft where you camped for hours for a rare dragon to spawn in Northrend. So if you were the one who got that kill, you got a mount skin, and you did that for hours. And it wasn't faster, it wasn't necessarily better looking either. It was just huge respect, and there was a lot of people who did that. But in Guild Wars, we don't really get that. We have three. If you come to, you have the World War Class skin, then you have the new Sky Scale one from Sodo, and then you have the Skimmer from the Wizard's Vault, right? I think those are the only 3 obtainable ones, and they are all relatively easy to get. And then you have all the mounts. Like everything is so accessible to the point where we kind of run out of content.
Yeah.
So I don't particularly agree with content content needs to be accessible. I think it needs to be accessible to the point where anybody can attempt to do it, but especially around release, it's not just because you attempted it doesn't mean you have the right to the rewards. You have to actually learn, and as a community we have to get better at it, like Dragon said. Yet again, jumping back to Sodo final boss as well, a lot of people got upset about the boss being too difficult. I agree that the boss was kind of cluttery, difficult to understand which one did what, but isn't that part of doing new content around release? Having absolutely no idea what's happening, die a couple times, waste hours playing the game that you love, before the community kind of understands, and then eventually gets easy.
Yeah, why is it not okay to like why are we so worried about failure? I failed Dragon's End the first time I did it at 0.1%.
I
Yes, we
didn't.
could have killed it if Grimjack used the might booster, but we didn't.
Yeah, yeah. But
And we had to go
the
again.
flaming begins, right? The flaming
Yeah.
begins right away. Like, oh, why did you do this?
But the beautiful thing is we didn't actually flame because we were like, wow, that was hard.
Yeah,
And that's what happened. We deserved to lose. We didn't know what we
yeah,
were doing.
yeah.
Right? But in but this is actually the most insane thing. But the flaming happens in Guild Wars 2, not because you failed, but because you failed something that's so freaking easy
Yeah.
that it's like embarrassing, right? Like that's the problem.
Yeah.
People often don't flame in raids either, unless the expectation is massively, misaligned. But if you fail in raids, it's kind of like, oh, we like misplayed. If you fail in open world, it's like, wow,
yourself.
you just all AFK'd, right? Like you all just didn't do anything for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because I wish that I knew every person that AFK'd in my maps so that I could just like ban them from ever speaking to me. Like this sounds so unhinged, but it's just, I just find it so unfun to play with people who don't want to play with you. To me, community is all about playing with other people and having a similar goal and laughing what in the process and just, chatting about random things. But I feel like we are denied of this when people join maps and they specifically choose to not contribute. There's a difference between being a new player or being shy or being
low DPS or
like that stuff doesn't really matter to me. I think you can make up for all of that. What does matter to me is somebody that's not trying, somebody that doesn't care, right?
Yeah. It's all putting the lowest amount of effort, but you still kind of get the rewards. That is probably the play style that infuriates me the most, because there's no even all the energy and attempts goes to not participating, and then it just kind of feels like, why you're even playing the game? Oh, because you want the rewards. But at some point the reward was the journey, and then the loot was just the bonus or the visual brag that you completed something. But we've lost that somewhere along the way.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat that says, is this an NA culture thing or is EU open world kind of similar? This is a good question. I'll give it my take and then give me your take after, given that you play predominantly on the EU server, right?
Yeah.
So on NA, there's a way bigger culture of just not giving a crap about anything, right? There's a lot of people that like don't try to get better. There's not really a growth culture. There's a small subsection of people that try really hard. And it turns out when those people stop showing up to metas, those metas don't pass. Like the really hard ones, they just don't pass once those people no longer show up. But even worse, some of those people, they are so tired of like carrying the load that eventually they too just start AFKing and multi-boxing on accounts and stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to do that, in my opinion. I don't find that very fun. But on EU, I think there is a stronger culture. It's not totally perfect, but there's a stronger culture of people participating and growing and improving. It's not perfect, but it's better than the NA server. I'll give you a very obvious example to me. Death Branded Shatterer. Death Branded Shatterer is so annoying to do on NA because it's hard to get enough people, first of all. And then the DPS is so low that you like have to do the mechanics.
You don't out heal the
we don't out DPS the healing. But on EU, every time I go there's a whole bunch of people and they just out DPS the healing every time. And it's not like it's some like set up group or anything either. This is like just a bunch of pugs. So in my mind, it's just a little bit different. Now, I'm curious what you think about that. Do you think it's similar?
It's probably similar to some extent, but I think the major issue regarding the EU open world is probably just people staying quiet. I think that's the main issue. The people are overall good. People show up. I did the Deathbrand Shatter yesterday, 2 days ago, and I arrive. I did an infusion train. People come and go between the maps, and I go into Jahai Bluff, and there's already 2 tags there. And the reasonable amount of people, very smooth out DPS and everything, but there's very little communication.
Yeah.
The main communication that's happening is just banter, just messing
I think
around.
banter is better than nothing.
Yeah, it is. Like it is, but the moment something is not Deathbrand Shatter, the moment like it can be something small like Tarir, right? You have to. How many people are there on each side? The communication is not necessarily on par in that end.
Do you think that that's just because the thing isn't difficult enough? Because if the thing was difficult, people would be talking. They 100% would be talking because they'd be forced to talk, right? There's a big difference here. Like stuff fails because people, stuff it just passes anyway, right? Like it doesn't matter as much. Like the odds of losing, even if you're not talking on Tarir, they're pretty low. Like you're pretty likely to just blaze through it no matter what. But if something's more difficult, it necessitates that you talk. Like for example, and this is where things get really interesting though. But you look at Marionette, right? And that, if you're not talking about how many people are in each lane and being mindful of that, you will fail.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing is that nobody does Marionette on NA. Nobody does it unless you're doing like a private squad. And I think the reason is because it's difficult enough where it's actually annoying to play with people who are just going to leech and AFK and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're in this like massive tug of war as a community. It's like they can't really make harder content because it won't get played, but the content that they're making is so futile. It's just it's not hard enough to really motivate people to like work together. So I think that's why they started doing things like convergences, because then you kind of get both, right? You get people that are able to kind of chill in the normal mode, but then the CM, you do have to really work together. And so I kind of like that model, but the problem with that model is that it kind of puts people, there's not a lot of knowledge transfer. Like people don't necessarily talk, like the really experienced players aren't telling less experienced players how to improve and such.
That's probably what I would pinpoint as like the key factor here is that there hasn't really been a lot of nerfs, and the DPS outputs have just kind of steadily increased over the years to the point where, as you mentioned before, like in raids, you just need an open world. You just need a couple of really experienced people that pumps out a lot of DPS and then kind of compensates for the people that don't really care. Or for the AFKers or for the ones that are struggling to find their way. But that leaves a false perception for the majority of people in the middle. They kind of care, but don't really communicate. They're not really super experienced. That I've had in training multiple times people who say like raiding is easy. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like raiding is actually really difficult. It's just that most times you have 2 people in your squad that does all the side mechanics, that do the main things. So everybody else can just stand and nuke the boss, avoid the fire fields and Sabatha, and they go like, this was an easy fight. And then you have 2 people just jumping from cannons, busting their ass off, making it easy for the rest. And I feel like the open world is kind of the same thing to some extent here as well.
I would debate you a little bit on that. I'm actually in the camp that I think that I think many of the raids are quite easy. Many of the raids are quite easy. Not all of them are super duper easy, but many of them are quite easy.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's just a knowledge of the game issue that makes them not easy.
Okay.
So the encounters are stupid easy, like mechanically, some of them, not all of them, but some of them.
Yeah.
And it's the issue is that people don't understand the foundational parts of the game. And that's because the game didn't teach that to them in any other part of the game. So they get to, they get the raids and they're like handed a sword and shield and they're like, well, you don't know how to use any of this, but like, good luck. It's
do damage.
It's a bit of a problem. There's not really a good difficulty ramp up to that. I mean, I'll give you a very good example. the boss Samurag in Wing 4.
Mm.
Samurag, you can literally stand in the middle and do nothing. Like the mechanics are irrelevant. If you stand in the middle in particularly, because if you even did get hit, you wouldn't die. The healing requirement on that boss is like 0. Yeah. And if you really want to just win, here's what you have to do, folks. Just run 2 heralds with roads and just have them stay on Jalis and just spam them over and over and over again. Or even better yet, if you wanted to get really unhinged, play 2 heal firebrands with the stability mantra and stand your ground and mace, and then just swap between using Aegis and stability for the entire time. And you'll never get hit. Like your group is immortal. And it's a matter of understanding how the classes can really invalidate mechanics on a fight.
Yeah.
So another example is like if you play Cairn and you just spam stability and stand in one spot and out heal stuff, the boss dies.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. And and rage is irrelevant, so even if you had really low DPS, you'd be fine. I actually think that the community, I don't know why people haven't thought of this, but people, listen to me. If you play 4 healers on every boss, you'll never die. You'll never die. It's literally impossible to die. You will go and kill every boss. The only time it is possible is like Sabbatha has a time limit. But if you're not doing cannons, but otherwise, like it's pretty easy beyond that.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly why I think raids are not easy, is because of the knowledge transfer is not really there, and there isn't. Guild Wars is always in a weird state where other MMORPGs have the Holy Trinity. Guild Wars has, but kind of hasn't. We didn't have any healers, so every single class got their own unique healing skill. But then healers was kind of introduced to the game anyways, and I think it's easy because we have those things. We have the new setup with the heal. It's not really new at this point, and on top of that, we have the damage output is kind of steadily increased and hasn't never really been nerfed back to the point where it's easy to do enough damage, and you skip a bunch of mechanics. Like I don't think a single person here has ever done the intended mechanics for Bone Skinner.
No. I actually did way back in the day when it first came out, but that's a long time ago.
It died out faster than Bone Skinner himself, right? People just stopped immediately. And it's the same thing with what's that? The second boss in Wing 1, the sexy guy with the tongues.
Oh, Gorseval?
Yeah, Gorseval, yeah. When was the last time you kill off the wall and paraglided off on the side?
Yeah.
It is actually difficult, but we're bypassing because we have skilled players. Some people have the knowledge, they carry through the mechanics, and the damage issues there now. So, but I do think that raids are a good level of difficulty. But then there has to be some tweaking with let's say the damage output and things like that in order to make raids difficult again.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm being a bit pedantic here, but I still don't think it's the raids that are difficult. I think it's the knowledge that's difficult. And the reason the reason that the knowledge is difficult is not because of the mechanics of the raid bosses. It's because of all of the systems that go into getting into raids. The squad system is confusing. Finding people is confusing on the LFG. It's difficult to find people to prog with. There's a weird training culture in Guild Wars 2. There's like all of these things that contribute to raids being perceived as difficult, but in a box, in a vacuum here, raids themselves, the mechanics and stuff are actually not that hard and can be totally mitigated through like some really broken stuff. So this is why there's often like a bit of tension too in the raiding community, is there are all these people that know that like none of this is really that hard, but it's because they've like what is that, taken the blue pill or whatever, and now they're like they've seen the light and they like understand.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is you just have all these people that are like, holy crap. And I have the privilege of watching people go through these steps as they go through their raid journey in the Skane gang. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
There are people that are like kind of struggling, and then one day their eyes are opened and they just realize that they can break every fight using different like stupid stuff on certain classes. And then they're like, why does anyone struggle with these? I don't get it. Like they can't like comprehend that anymore because they've seen the light. And I think it makes raids in like the worst position ever, because then we think about things like Wing 8 and like how do you appeal to everyone with Wing 8? I mean, the answer is you shouldn't appeal to everyone. But how do you appeal to a wide audience at least? Because what's going through my mind is, here's what I'm going to do day one for every raid in Wing 8, for every boss. I'm going to play 2 Heal Scourges and 2 Heralds.
Yeah.
And I will make both of them play Jalis, and we will never die. That's what's going through my head. So unless but here's the thing, is that my experience will be radically different than the average player's experience, who's like, why don't we just go in with like Harbingers and I don't know, like doesn't Warrior heal
bunch
now
of
or
warriors,
something?
Warrior, that's my guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just going to be a very different experience.
Yeah, definitely.
So, like, what do they do, right? Like, how do you make this? There's just always going to be this tension and conflict.
And that's why I think it's a very smart idea that what they're doing now with the raids convergence and the open world, that they're kind of embedded into a similar looking mechanic fights. Just kind of the mechanics kind of differ a little bit, but at core they're the same encounters. Because Guild Wars 2 is very segregated when it comes to these different branches. Like you have not only PvE, PvP, we have SPvP, we have World as World, we have strikes, we have raids, we have dungeons, we have fractals, and very few people mingle in between these categories. We have the die-hard fractaliers that occasionally jump into a strike, and then we have the raiders that does the games only on Mondays because reset. And but with this, you kind of get them closer to each other. Maybe there will be a little bit more interaction in between, because there's a lot to win on it. Because let's say, I don't know how many times I've had people join in the community. They're like, I want to do raids. Raids is the only thing I want to do. That's what I'm interested about. And we go, sure. We introduce them. You reach. And then a half year later, they have reached Doom Wing 5, and they realize they're more than halfway through the raids. And that's where they just dip. But it's like, there's no content. It's like, there is. It's just not underneath the label of raids. There's plenty of things to do. You just haven't really explored it.
There's a lot of things to do. Yeah, I think that Guild Wars 2 suffers nowadays by just merit of having been around for so long. You know, there's just there's so much to do. But at the same time, some of it has become very outdated. I mean, we have things like dungeons, dragon response missions, fractals.
What are those?
Yeah, let's not talk about dragon response missions. But, you know, you just have lots of different content types, and this becomes a bit confusing for players.
Yeah.
Some of them require certain buffs or items like agony resistance and fractals. That needs to be changed for sure. And then you've got the buffs in dragon response missions, and then you've got... raids don't require agony resistance. It's just this like constant confusion.
Yeah. Like, I honestly thought that the bug with everybody getting access to ley line gliding with Xera, I genuinely thought that was a feature, and I thought that was great until they removed it. And that's when I realized it was not actually a feature. We're just gonna call it a feature. It was a bug, and I thought that was such a shame. Because already. Yeah, and that implies people that are really invested in raids, they done Wing 1, they did Wing 4 because screw order, and then eventually they come to Xera, and then they're gatekept by open world content.
Yep.
And so it's I personally think they should just unlock that within that instance, like get the bug back So, because I've had plenty of people join in, and then at the final boss, they realize that they don't have the right mastery unlocked. And it's not just like a first mastery either. It's like it's in the bottom, at least third spot, I think. But it's not something people just unlocked by playing.
It takes quite a
You have
bit
to
of
kind of go
time
out
to
of your
get
way.
that.
Yeah. And so that's why I think it's gonna be quite good having raids, convergences, and open event kind of more embedded closer to each other. Hopefully, it is the last one, yeah. So it's hopefully bring the communities, little, I'm saying plural communities because that's kind of what it is. We have a raid community, we have PvP, we have also world communities, but everybody says that they're PvX, but let's be real here, most people are PvE.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ventured into stuff like World versus World much?
Oh yes, oh yes. I would like to tell people that I'm a PvX, but it's such a meme niche thing to say. So I'm starting to doubt my own self-evaluation a little bit. But I
Yeah, I
do
would.
I do a decent amount of World's World every now and then. I don't have a particularly high rank. I do a lot more PvP. I love PvP. Um,
Do
and I do
you?
raid. Oh, I love it. That was the reason I began playing Guild Wars because the end game was supposed to be PvP. That was
That's
this,
true.
during people don't realize that we didn't have raids, we didn't have fractals. Dungeons was just like to introduce you to the story and get like a good, decent gear. But the World's World and PvP was the final end, right? That's what the entire community was gonna arrive in, and then we're gonna fight like the actual Guild Wars it was supposed to be, and then PvE audience began asking for more content, and they caved in and gave more and more and more, and then eventually PvP kind of ended up in the desert like it has been. So I'm very happy to see it is getting more love now because I do still think that's really where Guild Wars shines the best. I really truly think so. But that's beside the point. So I'm playing a lot of it, like a bit all over the place. The one thing I don't play is fractals. I don't find them funny.
Yeah,
I
man,
just
you're actually
don't
one of
get
the
it. I
first
just
people
can't.
that agrees with me there. It's fractals are they're very high octane, very
Mm.
fast, and I
Yeah.
actually kind of struggle with that. You basically have to learn your rotations in a different way. You're just always
Hmm.
bursting.
Yeah.
And I think fractals are very good. I think 5-person content is way better because it's easier to find
Hmm.
groups and stuff. But I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
really struggle to enjoy
It's the
them
design.
because they're so fast. And the reason they're so fast is because I do a lot of damage now because I've done raids forever. So whenever I go into
Yeah.
fractals, I'm like, holy crap, everything's dying so quickly. It's like a
Daughter saying
struggle.
night night.
Oh,
Yeah.
night night.
Yeah. You heard the mood.
Yeah.
It's one of those days.
Low
But
mood.
yeah. But I agree. I feel like it's like having an ice cream and you can just kind of sniff it and then someone takes it away from you. I feel like that's the fractals. You encounter a boss fight, interesting mechanics, and then it melts. And like I just feel like I was just starting to enjoy it and now it's gone. And then you have to do a weird puzzle with standing on a ball, and then the ball is bouncing, and then and then a new boss. Oh, spicy mechanics, and then done. Um, so I was just never the target audience for fractals, clearly. So that's probably the content I struggle to enjoy the most. So that's probably the hardest take I can do is that I kind of actually enjoy the newer fractals, and I know they got so
Really?
much. They got burnt to charcoal on forums and Reddit, and like it was trash. But I didn't enjoy fractals at a core because they were so fast paced, right? It felt like speed running, and in my mind, fractals was supposed to be some sort of end game dungeons. But they ended up being some speedrunny thingy dingly. Let's do this for a good gold per hour conversion rate. Da 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 da. But the later bosses, as they've been called, they're HP sponges. I kind of enjoy that more. I still think they're way too bulky. So it kind of ruins the fluidity of the entire fractal.
Yeah.
But I still think it's better than what we had because you just ran like a hot knife through butter with everything, and you skip a bunch of mobs with invisibility, with portals, and so it feels like you just skip everything, and then you get a huge amount of rewards. And I just don't particularly enjoy that sort of a thing. So
Hmm. You
Yeah,
know,
obviously I'm more of a strike raid type of a guy. Convergences, great stuff.
the newest fractal is one of the
Yeah.
only times in Guild Wars 2's history where I've thought, you know, the game would just be better off if they reverted this.
Ooh. Ooh.
It actually was so bad that I think it made the game worse,
Yeah.
not better. There's some
Oh,
stuff that just
really?
makes the game kind of the same, but
Mm.
this fractal was so bad on launch in particular
Yeah.
that I played for 1 hour and I went, I actually don't want to continue playing. And I just
Oof.
like logged out. Like
Ooh.
it was
All right.
so frustrating to me. And
Mm.
it was a design problem. They
Yeah.
and a bug problem. So there's a quality assurance
Mm.
issue there. And then there
Yeah.
was also it just wasn't fun to do. I think
Yeah.
fractals are the best when I think all encounters are the best when it's like 5 to 10 minutes max.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even closer to 10, I start to get like a little bit, like 8 minutes is kind of my,
Bone Skinner.
yeah. Well,
It's
Ponskin's quite
fast paced,
fast.
it's deadly, and when you know what you're doing, you're done within 5 minutes. If you don't know, you're gonna have a wipe fiesta, and obviously you bring a skirt and then you're fine. But
Yeah.
I
Encounters that are
think Bone
5 to
Skinner
8
is
minutes are the
great.
best.
Yeah,
Encounters that
and
are artificially made longer because they just want to make them longer, I don't find
mhm,
that fun personally.
yeah. No, no, I'm with you on that one. What I did with that fractal in question is the one where you're in that attack on Wizard's Castle, I think, right? Or Tower. I can't remember which one it is. But I did that on tier 1.
It's so long. Holy.
Yeah, I did it on tier 1, and it felt like a dungeon on launch. Because dungeons these days, they melt, right? You look at them too hard and the ghost vaporizes. But back in the day, they actually had a little bulk to it, and I got the same vibe from that one, which I particularly enjoy more. But it's not what fractals are usually. I'm not supposed to like fractals, right? And then they add something that I like, then it's either mislabeled or misplaced. Like it should have been something else,
Yeah.
or they just nerf it, right? But the jumping back to the original one, I play most things except for fractals primarily.
Yeah. Are you playing
But
any
it's
other games these days? Like, do you just
oh,
play Guild Wars 2 or do you play anything else now?
I mean, I keep myself up there on games, but you know, daughter.
Yeah. It's kind of how I feel, right?
So
Like, once you're
yeah,
invested in a game, it's hard to get invested in anything else because it just takes so
hmm
much time.
yeah. So I primarily play like teamfight tactics. Uh, it's probably the game I play the most beside of Guild Wars right now. But that is a lot to do with the fact that Guild Wars is probably the only game I can safely maintain and invest the limited time and energy I have on the day without risking falling behind by any means. Right? I don't fall behind. I don't lose out on content or experiences because I either had a really bad chronic illness day or because daughter outing or like anything. I will always manage to get the experience. But other games with their battle passes, they this time FOMO here, FOMO there, then it's it feels a bit like a gamble. If you do I dare to invest myself in this? Because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to join in properly, fully, and then you as an MMORPG player, you're scared of adding hours into a game that you eventually gonna quit. Like that's the worst thing you can do. So you rather stick around with a bunch of copium and hope that the game gets better or that the game gets re-released or um, than accepting that you move on. So I Guild Wars is pretty much the only game I play really, and I'm having a great time. I find things to do, and I think part of the reason is because I jump between these segregated communities like PvP. I do automated tournaments in the night, and then I do raids and strike trainings and open world stuff. Like you get busy achievement hunting every now and then as well. So I do think there's plenty of things to do, and I always feel like I have things to do, even 12 years in.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I think the thing that really keeps me in Guild Wars 2 is the community.
Mm,
I think that I would have stopped playing quite a long time ago. If I'm being totally honest, I would have stopped playing
right.
quite a long time ago if it weren't for the friends and the community, the camaraderie
Mm,
that I feel. Because the game has sort of moved away from the things that I really enjoy, but
yeah.
that
The
well,
PvP?
what I used to really like PvP. PvP now is like a measure in sanity checks, but I
Yeah.
guess
How many stun breaks do you need these days?
yeah, I just like
Mm,
being involved. I like doing things
yeah.
where I feel like everyone's involved. Dragon's End was like a huge thing for me. I absolutely loved
Mm,
that on launch, but they've moved
yeah.
away from things like that. Like in Soto, I felt like the bosses were so
Mm.
bad.
Lukewarm. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, ugh, right? I didn't find any joy from doing those.
Mm,
And it turns out that a lot of people just did an insane amount of leeching on those as well.
yeah.
I enjoy
Definitely.
feeling like we're all a part of like a big collective group doing something.
Hmm.
And I feel like much of the time in Guild Wars 2 lately, it's been moving away from that. And I feel like I'm playing alone with people around me. And I get that some people seem to like
Yeah.
that, but that's just not
Mm.
quite how I enjoy games.
MMO,
And
right?
yeah, I like
Mm.
MMO. And if it's not MMO, then it's not really for me. So I've just been sort of conflicted with that. But you can create the MMO if you can get enough people. I
Hmm.
think the issue right
Yeah.
now is there's kind of a lot of, I don't know if you've felt this, and I'm not trying to be like super doomer about it or anything, but I feel like
Get the foil hat on.
I feel like what is that's distracted me. I've now forgotten everything I was gonna say.
Oops.
That's
Doomer.
good. Yeah, I feel like yeah, it's distracted me totally. I was like, that is funny, and then my brain was like, nope, anything else doesn't matter.
Fluffy.
Yeah, total lost the train of
Mm,
thought.
mm.
Yeah, it's gone. It's totally gone.
It's gone.
It's
It's gone.
over. It's
Yeah.
totally
It's over.
over.
Yeah.
My brain has gone to mush.
It got
Yeah,
fried.
I think I was just gonna say that it feels like we've got to this place where people just don't care that much, and as
Mm.
a result, everything feels a little bit easy, and we're at this low point in the community where people just aren't as engaged. They have less
Yeah.
personal investment. They're like, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's
Mm.
bad. People used to get really pissed off when something was launched and it wasn't good. Now I don't
Yeah.
feel like people say anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
sure, there's like a little bit on the forums or whatever, but it's nothing like it used to be.
Reddit's Reddit.
Yeah, I want people to be wicked excited when something is good, and I want people to
Yeah.
be like super mad when it's not.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because to me, that's actually the measure of like a healthy community. But
Yeah.
right now, the happiest I see people, and I kid you not, this is true. The most excited I see people is when they're like, "Oh my gosh, my character gets to be half naked now when I'm doing raids, bikinis for the win," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"This is not content."
Beach 2024.
Yeah, seriously, like the content that
Yeah.
gets the most
Gem
excitement
store fashion.
is gem store fashion, and I go, well, this is not content really, and
Yeah.
at least to me,
Yeah.
right? I think for
Mm.
some people,
Yeah.
the fashion is the content, and fair enough. But to me,
Mm.
I go, like, what? We're not excited about.
Yeah.
We're not as excited about spears. We're not as excited about homesteads. We're not excited
Mm.
about the raid. We're excited about wearing almost no clothing while doing
Yeah.
raids. That's a
Mm.
little bit weird to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think that I value content more. Like I'm very excited about spears, right? Even though I feel like warriors definitely got the short end of the stick here. But it doesn't matter how good spears are if I have nothing new, fancy to throw my spears at.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so I feel like that's kind of probably part of why people don't really hype up raids as much, because people who have done raids for so long been yelling for either no longer here or burnt to the point where they don't dare to hope, pretty much, right? So people stay silent, stay away, wait for it. Is it actually good? While the gemstore fashionistas are still very much around. It's been healthy for a long time because they keep on pumping in new beautiful skins and hats and tea sets and whatnot. Like they do really good there. But for me, I need content, right? I like the story, but I don't really care about the story that much because I just first focus for me is it fun to play, and then other things can be good. I like to do make my characters look good, but it has to be I have to look good while doing something I enjoy. Otherwise, it's just temporary, and I'm gonna eventually
Yeah.
drop it. So it's
Yeah. Well, maybe I can add to that because here's what
mm,
goes through my head is I think the spears are super cool. I like the idea
yeah
of everyone getting spears. I think that's really neat. I think the mechanics they're adding with the spears are really good. I mean, I got to talk to the devs about this.
yeah
I just think
yeah
it's really neat, right?
mm,
But there is one little bit of gloom in me though. I go, well, but what are the spears for? What
yeah.
do they really add?
This
And
is-
I
it-
think they
it-
add a lot to things like world versus world and
mm,
PvP because by virtue of those game modes, just adding anything new as far as weapons means you have to interact with things differently.
yeah
But in PvE, does it really matter if I use a spear or if I use a sword? Not
mhm,
really, right?
yeah
And it's not like there's new content that is going to go, okay, well, you know, there's probably a couple builds using the spear that'll be beneficial in this way or whatever. It just doesn't really matter that much. Like when I look
yeah
at the spear from a purely like instance content thing, I
hmm
go, huh, it doesn't really make a difference. Like I will be able to kill every single boss without any trouble without a spear. So like what does the spear really
yeah
do? And
mm,
and that wouldn't even matter that much if there was a bunch of new content because then you're like, okay, well I get the spear and get to be kind of cool using the spear, but I also even if I didn't want to use spear, I could go and there'd be all this new content. And so you're
yeah
kind of stuck with this like push and pull of like,
mm,
yeah, the spear is really cool, but like, what
yeah
if well, we need more
it's a tug of
content?
war. Yeah
We need more content. That's the
mm,
problem.
yeah I've always been in that camp where I know raiding from a reader perspective needs to have a very deep story and it needs to be embedded into big events and all of those things. But I honestly don't really care. Is not caring is the wrong term here, but the gameplay is priority. That's the number one. That's what keeps people around. So just if the content is good, people are not gonna care about whether the story was good. Right? As long as they're having fun playing it, then they're gonna be a lot more chill about it. Like I know Soda got a little bit of criticism regarding the story ending and the final boss and things like that, but it was partially because it was not fun to play. So it was not fun to play. It was a lot of dialogue, and you followed two NPCs. So that meant that you were listening and paying a lot more attention to the story. If you had been engaging, super fun fighting, um, people would probably given the story a little bit more slack.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm applying the most hope probably because I very early on it was very easy to see that Soto was not targeting us, right? People who put a lot of hours into the game, they've been around for years and know our ways around Tyria. We were not the targeted demographic for this expansion. So I have a lot more hope for Jonathan Wilds because of that. That maybe like it's our turn now. Like we're getting a raid wing, and we are getting convergences and no strikes. I'm a little bit sad about that, but that's fair. You can't get everything. So now they just have to deliver, and then we're there. We've actually reached the part where we've been asking for years for was it 5 years for another raid wing, and now we're
Yeah.
here.
It's a long time.
it
Yeah.
just we just have to get there. And I am very very excited for John 3 was for those reasons. It feels like it's our turn in a weird way. Like we got the new player experience. They added in a new daily system that was great. um I guess there's this one thing I feel like I'm kind of lacking is that probably elite specs. I think that will be the one thing I miss the most.
Uh, yeah, yes and no for me. I think I I can understand why. But I think that elite specs are just kind of the similar problem to spears. I would much rather them not add any of that and just add like 3 raid wings, right? Like
Oh,
I would
okay.
much rather have content.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you sit down for a meal and somebody keeps bringing out the garnish, but they don't bring out
Mm.
like the steak. Like give me the
Yeah, yeah.
full meal,
Hmm.
and that's what I'd be concerned with. I think they can get distracted by a lot of the things on the outskirts, and to me, elite specs are
Mm.
that. It's like
Oh, okay.
why do we care about having elite specs if there's nothing to play?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's a fair one. In my mind, a raid a new elite spec could look like, for example, they just ignore adding a brand new weapon. That elite spec can be embedded into an already existing core weapon,
Mm.
or just no weapon at all in mind, because now these days trait lines don't really give any big buffs to weapons anyways, so the elite spec trait line doesn't necessarily need to have one. They could give, or just give core trait lines, like give thief an actually good support trait line, so they could get that heal specter going.
Mhm.
They could do a lot of things that would unlock more play styles, kind of like when the warriors, like we got our staffs, and which is pretty much a spear you don't throw. Um, that unlocked a complete new playstyle. Now we're getting spear, which is cool, but it doesn't change the way we play. Because even though it's range powered, that's fair, but we have a stacking meta.
Yeah.
So I'm never gonna feel like it made a big impact, because I'm still gonna stand at the feet of the bosses, or at in Tarrier South. I'm gonna stand next to the things. Like it's it doesn't really bring much compared to staff. So I would probably focus a bit more on adding in new means to play your class, or they just go full focus. I mean, I've been mentioned this on stream a couple of times. They could just add in. I'm saying just like it's a simple thing to do, but what if they added in like typical traditional elite specs? Like, warriors in a lot of other games, they can dual wield two-handed weapons.
Mm.
That would be pretty nice. We thieves perma stealth. Do we dare to add that? Um, Something like jumping back to the original concepts of what the classes actually are could probably be unlocking quite a lot of quite nice new things for people to play with. Um, but it still implies that we need something to slap it with. But I think that still will be pretty cool. The question is if raiding is the way to go, though. They made it very
Yeah.
clear in the blog post that they're doing this as a test to see if it engages enough people to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm actually quite concerned about this. I will admit that when I saw that they were putting out the Wing 8th, I was excited, but I was like,
Mm.
why?
It puts
That's kind
pressure
of
on
what,
us.
yeah. Well, I was like,
Yeah.
why are they doing this? Because
Mm.
it's been so long that, and to me, they haven't really focused on Endgame for so long. Well, my version of Endgame raids
Yeah.
for so
Hmm.
long that it like they've lost a lot of that audience already.
Yeah.
So are they hoping to bring people back? Are they hoping to get new players into it? Like what is the goal here? Are they doing it just because they think it'll be fun? Like
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand exactly what the goal is,
Yeah.
because I mean I can only speak for my community, but well, I can kind of
Mm.
also say that there's a few other NA communities that are really struggling to get people into training. Like people just aren't training for raids as much anymore. They're just not
Okay.
interested. And this has
Yeah.
been largely because of, I guess, the reward systems.
Yeah. You get to
So
legendary gear and then you're kind of satisfied.
yeah, and so if you don't
Mm.
need the legendary armor, if you can get that in open world PvE now by basically AFKing events for a couple months, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then I don't
Mm.
know. I don't quite get it. I'm excited
Yeah.
for it. I think raids are
Mm.
super fun, but I just think from a business perspective, I'm not entirely sure what the deal is here. Like, why are we doing this? What's
Yeah.
the
What's the
why?
incentive?
Yeah.
Yeah. One way, like if you look at other games, you could, in theory, slap in some really neat skins, like a mount skin, and have that as a rare chance to drop, and that will make people farm it weekly. But it's but it's still kind of tricky. We're getting a new back piece and we're getting a new legendary spear, but that's not necessarily enough to bait
What's
people
the
in
back
because
piece people keep talking about? I actually am so out of the loop. Like, what's the back
oh
piece?
shit. I don't think we know. I think we just that's
Yeah,
what we're
I
gonna get
don't know.
we're gonna get an open world PvE back piece legendary. We're getting the spear, and that was it, right? So
Man, I had this opinion a long time ago. I got to say it again. I'm going to get flamed for it in the comments. I don't care.
ooh,
I don't
all right,
understand what the point of legendary is in open world. I don't get it. Like, people don't
okay.
use, I don't get it.
I,
Like,
I don't think we're
why do
supposed to
we,
get it.
yeah, like, why do we care about having legendary armor if in open world, if it's almost kind of not that important that you switch stats a lot? It's
Yeah,
mostly important in instance content. And I guess the answer that I've received in the past is, oh, well, I just
respect.
really enjoy um, like role playing and picking different
Mm-hmm.
builds, or I enjoy
Yeah.
fashion, and so legendary lets me have unlimited fashion. And I'm kind of
Mm.
like, huh?
Cool.
Like, I still
Cool.
don't get it.
Are you
And I don't think
aren't
it
you
matters if I
lacking?
get it. Yeah, it doesn't matter if
Yeah.
I get it, I suppose, but it's still like, okay, we're adding another
Yeah.
legendary back
Yeah,
piece, but
we're
why?
just not the targeted audience in this. I
Yeah,
think that they're aiming these sort of things in, and they're squeezing in like the reason why we got the real reason why we got the obsidian armor is because the vast majority of the community is open world, limited.
hmm,
There's the moment you go into any sort of portal that's not to another map, you are a minority.
yeah,
So I think they try to uh, all of these new. There's a criticism I have to Guild Wars raiding in general, and there's that a lot of raid wings, especially, um, they kind of demand that you have legendary gear, that you have multiple builds that you can swap in between. And I usually take wing 5 as an example for that. Like you start off with 2 tanks, and then you swap out. Then you get a couple mini bosses with none, and then you're jumping in with 1 tank for Doom. Two-ish if you're gonna argue with the kiting part, but having having the norm that that you have multiple builds is already kind of gatekeeping new people in beyond that. Uh, so I do think it's probably smart for them to add in raid gear, legendary gear like that, so because it helps you all across the board, and the back legendary back pieces are
wait, how does it help you all across the board? What do you mean by that?
because since you can swap your stats, like it helps you tremendously when you do certain boss fights. Let's say raids. You can be that person who just sticks to your power DPS without swapping anything, but the community is so involved in the optimizing part. Like let's say you do strikes and then you go to you reach Bone Skinner and then someone is already somebody's already there. They're jumping to Scourge, or if there's a necromancer, they're swapping build so they can start doing the resing. That's kind of the norm in many ways, and that norm is something that kind of gatekeeps some people out of it. So
Yeah,
the moment you have a squad that's full like let's say you do a raid training and 8 people are new players, so they don't new raiders, so they don't have the legendary gear, they can't swap stats that much, and that's a severe limitation since everything is kind of you kind of adjust your builds, your squads, even your setup, which classes you play for what. So I do think it's smart that they added in. It's just not for us because we already have the legendary
yeah.
gears. Most likely, I'm assuming that's what you have.
Yeah, I think the convenience is good. I guess for me, I kind of go, well,
Cool.
you could buy this for like 1,500 gold,
Yeah,
or you could buy like 10 different pieces of exotic for like less than 150 gold,
yeah,
and that would be more than enough. I actually think it's like a total perception thing. I think
very much.
people think that they need to have ascended and legendary and stuff to be able to do this, But the reality is, if you just have a bunch of exotic with like, I have a bunch of alt accounts, and they're just loaded with exotic and random ascended drops, and nobody ever bats an eye. But I think it's the convenience of legendary is just so high that it makes people feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, and they're very much pushing for the overall audience, the overall player base to get better gear. You know, like when raids were released with Heart of Thorns, the majority of people were rocking exotics with a couple ascended pieces, and that was cool. If you had a legendary, that was amazing. But now you're getting ascended by just breathing, pretty much. So the issue is not that you're not getting ascended. The issue is that you need to pick the right ascendeds, pick the right stats. But it's quite easy to get since it's literally everywhere. And now with Gen 1 weapons kind of being handed to you as like half of it being already done through the Wizard's Vault, they're really pushing for people to be able to get legendary gears without... I don't want to belittle the effort you put into an Obsidian armor, but I would say, if anything, socially, it's easier. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier. It's a farm. I get that, right? It's a farm, but
a lot of people AFK'd that entire farm. By the way, like they just would like AFK the metas. They would AFK convergences. They would so they AFK'd legendary armor. I actually think this comment in chat is really important from Broken 303. It says, but what is the incentive for someone to even look at raiding if they already got their main reward through other means? Open world players are already fairly unlikely to venture out into the instance world. And this is exactly what we've seen in raids. This is one of my biggest concerns and why I think, okay, it's nice that you're adding a backpack, but now what's the reason people are going to go do fractals or world versus world or PvP? We've now created another how do I say this?
Possibility?
There's another door. There's another possibility. You've just created another reason for people not to do anything remotely difficult or challenging. And I guess that's fine if that's the direction they want to go. But then why are they adding raids? Like I don't get it. Right? They have to revamp reward systems for these other things. And add new rewards to them if they're not gonna, if the legendary is no longer the main chase, you know?
Yeah. Because that was the main reason why people started raiding. For starters, raiding has the stamp that it's the end game, right? Through MMORPGs. People who never played Guild Wars but kind of have an idea on the genre knows that raiding is the end game. So you jump in because of that. You hear that you can get legendary armor. That's the main incentive, and then you achieve it, and then you hear that it's a 5, 6, 7, now an wing 8 as well. But then, what's the reward? You can get a ring. It's not as... It doesn't have as much weight to it. So
not much allure to get in there.
Yeah, and on top of that, the content is actually a lot more difficult. So I guess one way, now I'm just purely shooting and brainstorming. What if they added in another armor rarity, like mythic or something? That gives slightly more stats.
Oh, I don't think they could do that at this point.
Get the farm begin.
That would be... I think that if they're going to add...
Yeah.
That's what
other games do, right?
I think this requires a little bit of setup. I'm looking at what Vixen said. I'm a firm believer that Legendary is a bit too pricey, long-term worth it, but they're just not attainable by the average new player. I don't think that Legendary is supposed to be attainable by the average new player, nor should it be. That's my position. I think that Guild Wars 2 is one of the most accessible MMORPGs ever. You can get exotic within like 5 hours of playing the game, and that allows you to do the hardest content in the game. Seriously, you could theoretically beat, could beat Ceres LCM with exotics, probably. I'm a little bit touchy on if that's true because
maybe not me or you, but it's somebody.
It's close. Like you theoretically it could be close. Like some of your teammates might have ascended, but theoretically you could do it. HTCM is totally doable. So theoretically you can do a lot of the content. And so the game is actually very accessible. I don't think you need to make legendary accessible. I don't think everything needs to be accessible. That's my position.
I cracked it. Yeah. The reason why we need legendary gear is because you can swap weapons, so you're not gate kept jumping in between these segregated community groups within the game. Because if you focus wholeheartedly on raids, you get your ascended weapon, you got raids, and then you jump into Worlds' World. Full berserker gear. You're not gonna last. Like a Worlds' World critter will finish you off. Um, and then the other way around, if you focus full heartedly on Worlds' World and then you decide to jump into raids, you're probably gonna have a better time. But you're still not nowhere near. You can change your trait lines and build and all that, but your gear kind of remains the same. You gotta spend a lot of money on your newly new what's that one called? Like a relic. They're quite pricey, and the overall audience don't have a lot of gold. They really don't, right? I can relate to this because I was a filthy casual up until I got until I began streaming. So 3 years ago, I played Guild Wars very casually. I rarely passed, even though I played pretty much daily. I rarely passed beyond 100, 200 golds because it's very expensive to be not as invested. Once you get invested, you get going, you start crafting legendaries with the means of selling. Once you get going, it's very easy. More money means more money, just like in real life. But when you're not, and you get a new character, you have to get a new ascended set. Some people still craft their ascended, by the way, which is it's mind blowing, which is ridiculously expensive, and it's a lot easier to get them from the Wizard's Vault, for example. But it's just very expensive to not have legendary gear. So it's probably a small. So that's why they want to mainstream legendary gear. The pure sake of convenience of swapping stats. It will hopefully maybe imply that people dare to jump in between the content categories.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just shooting blindly,
Yeah.
but that's one huge win. Probably,
Yeah. I could see that.
but
One, I think the big key here for all of this is they just need like a big reward update across the board for lots of different pieces of content. Because because
yeah,
legendaries should no longer be the pinnacle reward for anything.
hmm yeah,
I think they need to
it's the
move
new
that.
norm, right?
Yeah, if you put the ArenaNet hat on me and you said, Sneb, you have 24 hours to try to like come up with this idea of what you would do to try to fix the game or make it better, I
Yeah,
would take cosmetic if okay, this requires a few steps.
hear me.
Agony resistance would be removed and become an
Ooh.
account wide thing that you like
Yeah,
consume to a
hmm
certain point.
like Magic
Then,
Find.
yeah, then I would take it so that the cosmetics are off of the infusions, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like the cosmetics are different. And then I'd make like legendary infusions a thing as
hmm
well. So that suddenly that's a big gold sink. And
yeah,
then I would make it so that like everywhere has like a kind of like gizmo tonic. Like
yeah.
those would be the big chase items, the big chase drops
Mm.
um, for like raids and strikes and all those things. I'd probably make
Mm.
it so. One easy way to do this is at least maybe a bit of a band-aid way. But you know how you get that box from Epark that could drop like
hmm
any infusion in the game.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Make it
Yeah.
so that you can buy those using raid currency.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, make it so there's like a
Daily.
limited number. Yeah, limited number per week probably, but kind of
Yeah.
like what World versus World has going on, where you have that chest that has the unique infusion. Put a unique
Yeah.
infusion in there for raids, but then
Mm.
also put like a astronomically low chance of getting one of the crazy infusions as
Yeah.
well. And then in that way, you're immediately incentivizing people to do it
hmm
because there's big.
Very much. Yeah.
But I would also add like tonics, I would add
Mm.
titles, I would
Yeah.
add
The
all of
colored
these.
ones. People
Yeah,
like those.
I would add raid god, I'd make it like red or something.
Ooh. Yeah. I would love for them to add in mount skins.
Oh yeah,
But that has to be like a. I really enjoy when things have a very low chance of dropping.
do you think
That
they'd ever add Black
cannot be
Lion
sold.
keys? Could you get
I
it so that
I
you
w-
can get a limited number of Black Lion keys at the end of a
I
week?
w-
Maybe you're allowed to
maybe
buy one a week.
Yeah,
Maybe
my
half a
Dutch
sheet.
friends would kill me if I said yes to this because they can't buy Black License keys because it's banned
Well,
because it's labeled as gambling.
they would be able to buy these if wait, maybe the legality is different.
I
I
don't
was just
know.
thinking because then
So,
it would be disassociated from gems, which would be disassociated from money, right?
yeah, that is true. So maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, but something like that, I really think that would be the way to go. I would not be very upset if they dare to add in more things this account bound upon receiving. So in other terms, if you're lucky and it drops, that you can't sell it. I
Hmm.
would not be particularly mad if they did that, because I think that the moment you unlock it, with the gem store that we have right now, that implies that you can just swipe and get it, and that belittles the effort in that having, let's say, that mount skin implies. That it has 1 in a million chance of undershooting. That's the statistics now. But if it's a very rare drop chance and it's a count ban on acquire, that implies a lot of things. That you were either incredibly lucky, or you're really devoted, or you're a really good player because it was a very difficult encounter. Um, but the moment it's account wide, and it's not account wide, you can just sell it. It means swipers can swipey, and then it's not as much respect anymore. So I
Yeah.
would squeeze in a buttload of cosmetics like mount skins, weapon skins, armor skins, like whatever. But just make it account bound so people can't swipe their way and get that respect. It's that's how it works with titles and stuff like that, right? So you can't sell those. I mean, you kind of can.
Yeah,
You
you
can
can
kind of
sell a
sell
lot of
them,
stuff in the
but
game.
but um, that's trickier to walk around. But I do think that could be a really good incentive because it's not gonna bait new people in, but it's not necessarily intended to bait new people in either. Like they're busy getting their legendary armor, whether it's from rift hunting or wing 1 to 4 raiding. So just give us some nice looking stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would like to see something where we encourage players to play with people who haven't done the raids as well. I don't know how that would
Okay.
work exactly, but I think it would be cool because I think it also could be abused a lot because of alt accounts. But
Yeah.
it would certainly be neat if someone was incentivized to help someone else in some way. Like, oh, you get
Yeah.
like a little bonus because you half your team hadn't done the raid this week.
Like some sort of referral system?
No, not a referral system. I essentially what I'm trying to do is make it so that it's worth it for veterans to go, hey, I'm going to go into the LFG and play with a bunch of people that haven't cleared yet, even though I
Mm.
have. I think that there
Yeah.
needs to be better rewards for clearing it more than once a week if we want raids to be more active. Because look,
Okay.
if I
Yeah.
got better rewards, and I'm not a super reward driven player, but I'm enough of a
But
reward driven player that if I get literally zero, if I get like negative gold for doing the raid, I'm probably not going
Mm.
to do it multiple times a week unless
Yeah.
I'm on my alt accounts. But if I
Hmm.
got something, then I'd probably just grind raids 24/7, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that they should do
Mm.
something
Yeah.
to,
Something is good.
yeah, they just give us some kind of reward for doing it again.
So so you're implying that, let's say, raids, you get one huge bulk of stuff, and then if you do it another time, it's less but still reasonable. So you like
Yeah.
enough for you to go twice.
Yeah, like just give me something. It doesn't have to be a lot, but
Like less magnetite shards, or
I mean I don't know. It would they would have to this would have to be balanced around all other rewards, right? So it would be
yeah.
very difficult to just say, but I think it'd be nice if there was something, even if it was just
Well,
like half the gold
yeah.
or like a third of the gold. Like if I got like
Yeah.
60 silver and an exotic weapon, I'd probably be
Yeah.
grinding raid bosses.
What if you just lost overall gold revenue and material revenue by, like, let's say 30% each attempt? So technically speaking, it always gives you something in return. It's just at some point you
So
don't
it's
deem
less
it
and less
worth
and
it
less.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they could balance it. So I mean, what's an example? The problem right now is that if they do this, I'm farming Cairn and Mersat Overseer like over and over and over again, right, to get rewards.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to like think about what kind of gold per hour you'd be okay with, and then kind of set it at that. Like what fractal dailies are what, like 30 to 40
We
gold
can
an
ask
hour or
the cave
something?
farmers, see how much they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that kind of goes against a little bit what we talked about in the beginning, where we said like the things are kind of segregated a bit, and we want the community to kind of merge a little bit more and jump between the contents a little bit. So allowing raiders to just play raids on repeat is kind of going against that a little bit. And if raids get it, then fractals are gonna want to get it, and then we're in a pickle. But I don't think that's particularly a bad idea, because I do think that, look at that doggo.
Dog.
Mlem.
Dog. For those
'Cause,
listening, there's a dog on the screen now.
yes.
There's dog. Dog.
Oh my god.
Nice dog.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's a good dog.
But
Sorry, that's just
yeah,
this like
this dog. Yeah,
this derailed everything. The dog.
everybody gets mesmerized like, ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I kind of forgot what I was gonna say. But that was your payback to my
Yeah.
my blue hair from before.
Yeah. The dog. Look, he's got a bow tie on. Look at that.
Oh,
Very, very nice. Very nice.
so calm as well.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now. He's calm. Yeah. Anyway, what are we talking about? We're talking about like rewards and stuff.
Yeah. But I wouldn't mind having a little revamp regarding all this. I do think they can definitely rely a lot more on items, cosmetics. But I understand that they probably haven't really looked at it. But I'm assuming that gem store sales are probably their main income in many ways.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I'm also thinking that at some point they thought it was a great idea to give away Living World seasons for free.
Yeah,
So
just to try to get people to play.
yeah, exactly, because you want the people to play. So what if you add in rewards with the thought process that if you add gem store stuff as a reward, then they stay in the game for longer period of time. They invest themselves more inclined to buy something else from the trading from the gem store. Like I feel like the reasoning could be applied here if they could validate the idea of giving away Living World seasons, which was kind of low-key mini expansions we're paying for now. Then they could probably sacrifice a mount skin here and there, a weapon skin, just to go for it. Just make that as a potential reward. It could just be a cycle as well. You know, we have a cycle in Blackline Chess Keys where they just swap 2-3 exclusive items. In theory, they could do the same thing with raids. Just like they added a new thing. It's there for 2 weeks. It has a low chance of dropping on every raid boss. Go at it.
True. Yeah. Man, I just feel like there's so much potential for the raid rewards. I'm gonna be a prophet here for a second. They must change rewards. They must. Like it's not an option. They must change rewards for Wing 8. They have to. They have no choice, because if they don't, then it's going to really impact replayability.
Yeah, I'm all in for that, and I if I could. This might be a little bit much for people, but I think that they should stop giveaway stuff for free based on previous accomplishments, like giving people a free legendary relic. I think that's a mistake, because they're adding in a new
journey. You know?
Yeah, exactly, and you immediately you have to put a lot of work and effort into making this thing work, and then because people did something 5 years ago, then they're obligated to get this for the new thing for free. I don't particularly agree to that. We should be kind of happy that we get something to strive towards, and now we don't, because people who cared about it has already gotten for free, and people who didn't get it for free don't obviously care, so they're not pushing for it. So then the change was kind of like, there. I think they should just, if they decided to revamp the legendary system. They should be allowed to do that without compensating people.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I
That's an unhinged take because people get so bad. People got super mad at me on Reddit one time because I said that I thought we needed more rewards like Tequaddle's Horde and Drakar's Horde, because I actually think that rewards that are very unique to a boss with RNG are not the most unhealthy thing ever. I think it's kind of cool to be like, oh my gosh, I got super lucky and I got this thing that no one else has. Like, I'm totally down with that.
Yeah,
Apparently, a lot of people are not. So
no, because the idea is that they probably want that specific skin or something, but they don't like the fight, and therefore they are arguing against it. But that's part of the process, right? If you kill a necromancer, he's not gonna drop a holy spear. It like we can't break that fantasy bubble. It would just maybe in fractals. Fractals makes no sense. It's just swibbery swabbery Azura stuff. But in open world, the Quaddle is not gonna drop a golden tooth. It's just not. It doesn't make any sense. So if you like the aesthetic of a boss, then you're most likely gonna like the aesthetics of the things they potentially drops. And I think that's reasonable. Yeah. I just don't see why we're supposed to be upset and get compensated for them revamping systems that are decades old.
Yeah, that was a big
gives us
problem
less things
for
to
me
do.
with Relics. Yeah, like Relics, when they were like, don't worry, we'll give you one for free. I was like, why? I was like hoarding resources to be able to try to earn one, but then they just gave. I thought there might be like a big string of achievements tied to it, but no, they just gave it to us. So, however, I should actually know. I've never thought about this before, but I think that the introduction of the relic, actually really damaged the raiding culture for a while, because when they initially released it, a lot of people were like, "Oh, like all my builds are broken now, and I don't have the things I need to be able to make the new builds." And that actually did make people like not want to play for a while. At least it did for me and a few of the people I know. But
yeah, I definitely think that if anything, just nerfed the damage output. Since they added the relics in, the DPS kind of skyrocketed a lot, and I do think it would probably be for the better of the game if they just overall nerfed all damage outputs for a little bit, just to kind of bring things back to a little more challenging. Because yet again, we're speeding through content, we're boosting through, we're stealthing this, we're aegising stability through that, and at our core, things are actually kind of interesting and intense and things to enjoy. But we're boosting through free legendary relics if you craft this, and and then we stand there and go like, well, there was no content this expansion. It's like, no, we got that one for free, and it's like we are part of the problem. We're optimizing our way through everything. And the moment they make something slightly more difficult that we have to work for, then all of a sudden, instead of seeing this as a collective challenge, then we're yelling for it to be nerfed. I'm saying we, but I didn't do this. You didn't really do that either. But as a community, that's the thoughts that comes out, and I just don't get it.
I don't know if lowering the damage will really do anything at this point. I mean, look, it's my opinion that the skill level in Guild Wars 2 has gone down since Secrets of the Obscure, despite power going up. I think people have gotten worse at the game because they haven't had to flex any of their muscles, except for Saris, but that's a very small part of the game.
Yeah.
So
and not a lot of people did either.
Yeah. It's probably like 2,000 people maybe. So we've got.
I haven't done it yet.
You haven't? Oh yeah, it's quite a journey. I actually think the toughest part about Saris is the social part. It's 100% hard. It's just difficult to get people to buy in and stuff.
Commit.
But, yeah. Well, and the reality is that there's going to come a time when you have to sit someone down and say it's not good enough. And that makes people uncomfortable, but I was
what are you going to do?
That, right?
Yeah.
I had to do that.
that's what MMORPGs originates from, right? That it was something that challenges that you that you persevered through together as a, whether it's a guild, as a community, and there was a lot more people than just the ones in the fights. Like I remember my first World of Warcraft guild, I was second reserve warrior DPS, and that implied that every time it was time for raiding, I was sitting in guild chat ready to be called into the disc to I was not, it was TeamSpeak call in case two warriors was not gonna show up or did too many mistakes in one day or something. That would be my moment to go in, and that would be, that's completely unspoken for now. And the fact that you farmed one raid wing, farming in other games didn't necessarily always mean you got the kill. It just meant that you attempted the same fights to get in deeper for each week. And that's unspoken for now. If you even for brand new people that jump in and they go in with a brand new squad and everything like that, nobody has any experience, they still quite comfortably clear stuff. And the moment there's something that is a little bit more difficult, then it gets nerfed, and I'm a bit sad about that. You mentioned dragons then in the beginning of this conversation. I hold that one very fondly. I failed on it multiple times, and I commanded, and eventually we got it, and it felt amazing. Didn't get any rewards or anything like that, just the fact that we got it. And it was before before all the nerfs as well. Like you spent an hour in the pre-events, and you did events. And then you had to go interact with these Jade bot dinglies to give you the defensive, and it's spreading out. Like it was actually intense. A lot of effort, and we got it, and it felt amazing. You don't really get that feeling anymore because everything is so fast-paced, and it's limited to CM stuff, like CM strikes. I think they're fun, but
we need new big chase items in order to to incentivize people to see that fun. Unfortunately,
yeah, you're not jumping in for the, like, one reason why I don't do CMs regularly is because once you do the normal mode, and you go like, this was kind of comfortable. Like I got the hang of it.
Yeah.
And then you look on, okay, what's CM stuff? And then you see all the new mechanics they add in. That guy's the exception here. You see all the new things that they add in. Okay, all right, but what's the catch? Like, because making it a lot more difficult. What is the new things that I have a chance of obtaining? And then it's like, I can legendary insights and provision to it. Like it's kind of like, nah.
Yeah, there's not much there.
It's not enough. I know that you have that infusion thing if but that's only if you complete it once, right? And then you unlock it through the merchant, and then you can just farm any other, and then eventually you get it. And I feel it's a mistake to, because you could get so much content out of it by just kind of making the rewards lower drop chances. I think someone said in chat that the RNG is a necessary evil. I genuinely think RNG is a necessary evil because it creates so much content, forcing people to replay. I don't know how many times in World of Warcraft I did the same dungeon on repeat because I needed that damn helmet with the right stats to drop. And we would never get that. We have so many safety nets and parachutes in Guild Wars 2. That's a little necessary evil. RNG for fashion, but do good. Like, and don't let us sell this. If you get this, random infusion or whatever skin it is, make it a compound. A compound on the acquire, so you can't sell it, so people can't just swipe their gems to gold and buy it off the trading post. Give it an actual respect factor.
Agreed.
And I really think so. Like in around release in Guild Wars 2, it was impressive when you saw somebody with a legendary. Like you would stop, you would look at him like a little shit.
Yeah, when I see legendaries now,
wow.
I think, how much did you AFK and how much gold did you buy?
I don't even we don't even notice them these days. We transmute them after a week tops. But back in the good old day, that would be completely unspoken for. Like that would be 100%. Unfathomable that you worked so hard with map exploration, without mounts, without gliding, and you just jogged around the world for hours, and worldless world, no war claw, and to then go through all of that for, like, I want this to look like this exotic. Like, nobody, they would think they were being sarcastic. But now that's kind of the norm. The legends are so accessible. So having some nice looking skins with that respect factor would be pretty cool. I will be all in for it. All in.
100% agree. So I am looking at the time here. We're kind of starting to
Oh yeah.
wrap down. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you have any other thoughts about like community building
Ooh.
or what you've learned in the last 2 years? How you
Hmm.
think community is going to be in Janther Wilds?
I do think the community has definitely calmed down. Definitely.
Chill.
Whether it's it's for the better or worse, considering because you can argue that people being pissed, it's a confirmation that people care about the game.
I think people should just be
Uh,
passionate, not necessarily
yeah,
pissed,
exactly,
but passionate.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, they go hand in hand in
yeah,
many cases,
they
in
they
forums
do.
at least. But but I just I think things have definitely calmed down, and I do think that kind of makes people a bit nervous, like because you don't know, is the game gonna go end up in a bad position because people are not talking about things anymore, or have we just lost that part of the community that were talking about it? Because Guild had always kind of struggled a little bit with maintaining people that were the players that were very motivated, very ambitious. That you see that in communities and raid trainings and things like that. People that are most devoted, they either lose motivation after half a year when they obtain the full legendary gear, or they hit a wall somewhere around their CM progressions because they dove in so hard that they lost touch, but in some ways, and that made them quit the game.
Yeah.
So it could be because of those reasons. We just simply lost the community, lost that part of the player base that were really devoted and vocal. Because I'm
Yep.
very devoted, but I'm not that active on forums, or especially on Reddit. I don't dare
Don't
talk
go to
there.
the forums.
So I don't
It's a
dare.
dark and brooding place.
Yeah, no way. So I do think that it can be misunderstood as, but at the same time, I do I am very confident in the worth noting that I'm very confident in the overall health of the game. I think just as RNG RNG rewards is a necessary evil for long-term content, I do think that Sota was a necessary evil. It threw a lot of us veterans off in many ways. I don't think I've ever played so little new expansion content as I have done through Soto, because
Yeah.
even though Soda was released, and I jumped in, played the meta once, and then I kind of ditched. I went back to Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, things that's been around for years. But it was not for me. I was not the target demographic, and I have big hopes for that John Theory Wilds is gonna target. People like us a little bit more. They've been around for a long time. They're looking for something new, a new challenge. We're gonna get our homesteads. We can decorate those. There's probably gonna sink some opportunities in there regarding what sort of rewards we can obtain. Because now with raiding, we're getting those damn tokens for the guild hall that at this point I just throw because they are so common to the point where they're just in the way.
Yeah. I have like two
Unnecessary
stacks of
clicks.
each now. This is
Yeah.
awesome. I'm so excited to put those
Yeah.
in the
Wow.
little home.
Giveaway.
Yeah, I've been buying mini pets because I heard mini pets
Yeah.
might be able to be displayed. So I'm
Yeah.
buying up the mini pets.
Mm-hmm.
I bought everything I need for my like the nodes, but I
Yeah.
need the chest, so I need to get Sam. It's
Oh, that's why you
people are
want
like, don't buy
Ogre
the
Wars.
chest, don't buy the chest, don't buy the chest, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, but I have
But I
to.
want it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
want the
Yeah.
chest.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I've
have
got
the
some
same
work to
thought, but
do.
for me, it's the good old Dwayna achievement. You have to get the long bow, the short bow, the back piece, and the two items that drops randomly from Malkor's Leap. There's one item from there, and then
Oh,
you get like an achievement called like Acolyte of Dwayne or something like that. And I've had my eyes on that since release, and I actually got the random bows from random wardrobe unlocks on years apart. So I just need that RNG thing from Malkor's Leap event now, and then I have it, but it never drops for me. And then it's there. It's on the trading post. It costs like 300 gold. It's an exotic stupid ring that I'm never gonna use, but that achievement is kind of juicy.
yeah,
So I keep
for
on going,
sure.
and yeah. I think that's the sort of things Arena can definitely push for. They clearly opened up their eyes regarding the rewards and how they can embed titles into rewards, and now making titles in different colors is a big appeal for people. Maybe the next step is that they add in icons. So there's some sort of icon involved with a title. But I think that's a good step. But I would definitely endorse them to add in more fashion stuff and make it obtainable through RNG measurements. Whether it's raid, open world, doesn't really care. I just don't want more infusions.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired of the infusions. I'm sorry. Um, they're amazing in many ways, but once I have one, I don't use it for longer than a week, and then I sell it again. It's I don't know. It's lukewarm.
Account bound them and it'll change.
Exactly.
Make them
Exactly.
make it so that it's like a wardrobe thing. You've unlocked the chalk and then you're kind of good, and then people will
You just
stop
slap it in
hoarding
there.
them as much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then being an
Yeah.
actual walking light bulb, it will actually give some positive attention then,
Yeah.
because that implies you've been really lucky, effective. Um, it brings a little respect to it.
Eventually.
So
Okay,
yeah.
so how can people find you if they want to know what you're
All right.
doing and what's going on? What's your
Yeah.
Twitch? Do you
All
do
right.
YouTube now? Have you done
I
that?
do, yeah. I got some
Share
good
it.
guides up there as well for targeting the new people that they want to get involved into, whether it's some small stuff like how do you set up a squad to inventory management, like a bit of everything. Some converters guides as well. Plenty of good stuff. Been covering the bonus events as well, giving people the easy ways out to get the
Ah.
most out of them. So should I link them in chat or
You can
should I
just
give
say
them to
them
you?
because people will be hearing
I'll
them, and
say
then
them.
I can link them
Oh
in the
my
YouTube video
god.
and stuff.
Yeah. All right. On YouTube and on Twitch, I'm Aderace, and on Twitter I am the Aderace.
There you go.
And I'm also on TikTok, but that's just like the YouTube short highlights, and I'm also Aderace there. So
Wicked. Okay, well, thank you
I
so
know.
much for so here's
Huh?
the context, people. Last night I was like, oh man, I've been so busy last 2 weeks. I didn't get anyone to be on the podcast for Sunday. And then Ader came into the chat and I was like, yo, we haven't talked in forever. You should 100% come on the podcast. And
Yeah.
boom, there it was. So
Right
that's
place
how
at the
this
right time.
exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully not the last.
oh, definitely not. It's crazy though. There's so many people to talk to. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a lineup for the next 2 weeks already, so we'll see.
Beautiful.
You will be
Beautiful.
back. You will be
Yeah.
back.
Perfect. You know how to reach
Okay.
me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everybody for watching.
Oh,
This is the Last Poll
yeah.
podcast, episode 11. Nice. Why
Yeah.
be first once
Yeah.
when you can be first twice?
Yeah.